Okay, folks, we've entitled this, Penny's done the bulk of the work on preparing this. We wanted to say something about our vision for the Glascairn site and for developing a resilient community within the village. Just note at the start, the strap line on our website and on all our communications is Strong Heart, Healthy Community, which we adopted in 2019. And this is how we envision moving forward to that situation where we have a strong heart and a healthy community. We've got a lot going for us in Kilbokie as a village, not just the stupendous views from the village over to Wivus and Cromarty Firth. There's also a lot of good things, positives within the village, whether that's the shop, the hall, school, church, the Kilbokie Inn, football club, whatever else. There's lots of things going on within the village. However, historically, if you go back within the village, I don't know if you can read that on screen, but there have been a significant number of housing developments from the 1970s, where Coolcroft, we say, right through to ones that are being developed right now by Cullochs at Glascairn Meadows. And it's been hundreds of people have moved into the village, but nothing else has actually happened during that time, or very little, I should say, in terms of providing new facilities within the village. Most of the assets that we have, such as the shop and the pub and so on, were here before. Okay, the church has moved into the village in the last 10 years or so, a little bit more. In fact, it's 10th anniversary of the church moving into here next month. But one of the most frequent comments we hear, and during the survey work we did, is that the village doesn't have a real centre or heart. And that's one of the things we were seeking to address. Also, the road through the centre of the village has got busier and busier, and it feels like the traffic's got faster and faster, as well as some very heavy traffic, which can be quite intimidating as a pedestrian or a cyclist. And it can be, like I said, quite scary on your bike when someone goes past you like that. And the way Kilbokie has been developed over the years has meant that there's what you might call low permeability between the different housing developments. So that to get from one housing development to another, you have to come out onto the main road, walk along and then back in elsewhere, rather than having some sort of back roads or links between those, which would have been really nice. And of course, that also leads to a lot of people using their car to move around the village. It's surprising how many people will drive from one end of the village to the shop and back. So in 2015, if you see the map on screen there, the area delineated in red, we thought there was an opportunity to purchase that piece of land, which effectively had been abandoned in terms of agricultural use for a number of years. And we saw an opportunity to use that as a catalyst to create a new heart to the village. After all, it is largely in the heart of the village as much as anything can be from the shape of the village. And to improve our local resilience with a social, environmental and economic benefits for the community. And it can make a real difference to people's lives within Kilbokie. And it's also an opportunity to get people involved in terms of volunteering within the community as well. And after a long and painful process, I have to say, we ended up in a situation where once we'd purchased that land, through the community right to buy, we developed a relationship with Tulloch Homes, who were the preferred bidder for the land, and we did a land exchange with them, which increased our land holding within the site. And that also gave us an opportunity to do an exchange or a sale to Cairn Housing to develop the 6 extra houses along the B9169 as affordable units. So rather than getting 8 affordable units within that site, we've got 14 in total, 8 from Tulloch and that extra 6 from the deal with Cairn. We were also very much aware of future-proofing our work and thinking about the global situation in terms of climate breakdown and the environmental impacts on the planet, and how we could bring an environmental strand to our thinking, and also improving the quality of life for local people, benefit to the quality of life and our resilience as a community. So that's where we developed our environmental policy in 2019, and that has influenced our thinking and development of where we've gone and how we've reached to where we are. So this is just a bird's eye view of yep, I'm handing over to you in a second, Penny. Of the Tulloch and the Village Green site, and Penny's going to take us forward in terms of that and looking at how we see things developing in the future. So I'm going to hand it over to her now, and she will take over from this point.
I thought you were going to romp through the whole thing there, Richard. Okay, so this slide is in just to show the area of land that we own and just the general layout. You can see in the foreground there the village green, and just beyond it, long sort of white building. That's to show the location of the community building. It's not going to be a long white building, but that's just sort of a placeholder as to that's where the community hub will go. Then just beyond that, you'll see the 3 little white buildings, which is the housing, which is referred to the community housing with Cairn, where we did this amazing land swap with Tulloch Homes, which gave us this little bit of extra land, which meant we achieved our ambition to deliver some additional community housing, and we also got some money in return that we could plough into the project. Oops, is this going to work? Is that? Oh, yeah, that's it, isn't it? So this is a little visual of these 6 houses. Lovely, modern, energy efficient, warm houses for local people, which is just a fantastic additional resource to have in the village. Those that you've seen, they're going up now. Just the one almost got a roof on, you know, really fantastic. Just getting to grips with this computer. But here now we're moving to the village green. So you'll have seen we've got the bare bones of the green there now. Tulloch developed for us our design. And this is the sort of palette that we're now going to create a tremendous community resource on. We've already started. So a couple of weeks ago, some of you were involved in the tree planting. We're now working to a design that's been developed for us with the community and with a landscape designer. So what we were doing was tree planting with the children at Kilbokie Primary. We planted a community orchard, so apples, pears, plums, cherries, which is going to be a really great resource for engaging the community in the future. Also some native trees, which will create a bit of a landscape framework for the green. The people who came along seemed to really enjoy it, and we've put up some quotes here we got back from the volunteers who were involved. Hopefully, you know, just lovely to see the benefits that people get out of this sort of experience, and we hope it will encourage lots of other people to get involved in future working groups. rather than planting or sowing the area with the normal lawn seeds, what we've decided to do is to sow the whole area down to wildflowers. And we're hoping that this is going to create a real biodiverse, interesting, buzzing, alive area, which is going to be great for nature. We've been really keen to take a very naturalistic approach to the green. It's not to say it will all be long grass all the time. We'll mow some areas so that, you know, where people walk in the more used areas, there will be a lot of hopefully colour and wildflowers in there. You'll have seen that the table tennis, the outdoor table tennis, is already in place. This was something that was asked for by people, and it's great that we were able to actually deliver that. We're hoping it's going to be well used by young people, families, friends groups, etc. It's looking a little bit bold there on its own at the moment. We'll keep an eye on it and try and sort of soften it and meld it in, and you know, make sure there's a bit of shelter if necessary. Hopefully that will be quite well used. And then one of the other things that we will be doing quite soon is building shelter, timber shelter. The timber is coming from Agas Community Woodlands, which is a great little link up with another community project in the area. So it's a timber building with a living roof. It's 8 meters by 4 meters, and it will have a paved area inside, so it'll be very wheelchair accessible and suitable for lots of different uses. We're hoping it's going to be a real sort of central point for gatherings and all sorts of activities, training events, demonstrations, market stalls, hangout space. Hopefully it'll be really well used. The first event that's going to be there is the raising of it. So this is going to be a community event. I don't know if any of you have seen that film, Witness, which is where the Amish, the community, all come together and raise the barn. It's going to be that in microcosm.
Harrison Ford here. We're going to have Harrison Ford.
Oh, well, that would be a draw. Going to be a natural play area, again, sort of following on the natural theme, mainly rocks and logs and willow structures, which is intended to encourage sort of creative and physical play, jumping, balancing, rolling, climbing. These are the sorts of things that the parents that we spoke to said they wanted, and we were delighted that that's the sort of thing they want to do. The theme right through all this is the procurement is all through local companies as far as we possibly can. And this next slide, these are the mushroom stalls that have been made already by the little business down the road at Cullycudden, the Chainsaw Creation. So these are little seats that we'll put in a circle for the children. They look a bit strange because they're going to be buried into the ground, which is why they've got that long stalk. It's great to see all these bits of kits coming together, and these will arrive on the site very soon. Tomorrow. This is the sign that we hope will be put up. So again, a local effort with local companies. Eve Russell from Black Isle Graphics has done the design for us. And Cruve in the village will be doing the manufacturing of this sign. And Cruve is also making all the benches. There's quite a few benches to go in, which we hope will mean that people will relax and take in the views and enjoy the site. And this is just to remind me to thank the funders for the Village Green contributions, the Gordon and Ina Baxter Fund for the benches. Highland Council have been truly fantastic, really supportive of the whole project. The Scottish Government working through Inspiring Scotland. I put this slide in just to remind me to talk about when these facilities will become available. The green is already open, and as we put the new facilities in, they can be used. There's a little glitch in that, which is that we haven't done the sowing yet. So we're going to sow all this wildflower seed, and then we're going to have people wandering about. It will get trampled, and we will get desire lines. We think we're just going to try and manage that process and hope that people actually don't want to walk on mud. So basically they won't, mostly, and we'll just have to make it good. There's one exception, which is that the play area might not open immediately because of Alex being on site, so we might just need to close that for a little while, but not beyond the summer. Now turning to the hub itself, that was the green. Turning to the hub, and this slide shows the general layout of the building. So you can see, I hope, the cafe building, and then a WC and potting shed. So those are the two first phase buildings. And then to the left is a future development. So that's the third building. They have a little, make up 3 sides of a courtyard. Then peripheral to that, the car park and various other things which I'll just run through. So that's the slide. I think you'll have all seen that. That's the general design of the cafe and toilets, which we think is really attractive. But again, very energy efficient buildings, and a total of about 106 square meters, so quite modest in size. Zooming in on the cafe, so the right hand end of that image, there's the kitchen. Will be quite a good quality commercial kitchen, but not massive. And then a servery, and then a 30 cover cafe. And our vision for this is that most likely we would want to franchise the running of the cafe out to a third party, you know, whether it's a local person or another charity or something like that. So not 100%, but likely. We would want to retain use of the building when the cafe is not open. So Tuesdays, the Church Cafe goes on a Tuesday, so always be shut on a Tuesday, evenings, any other time the cafe is shut. It could be used for all sorts of community things, business meetings or community groups or young people, private lets, you know, all sorts of opportunities for the cafe. And then zooming in on, looks like you see a rotting shed, but it's actually rotting shed. I'm not going to talk about the toilets very much. Little open space at the right hand end, that's what we call the potting shed, which is really it's a little volunteer base. So it's a place to store tools, sit and have lunch, boil a kettle, a little snug really, where if you're helping out, doing some work on the green or anywhere, you know, it's a little hangout space and we can keep everything together. That's that building. And then the peripheral areas, some of the things that we're planning, cycle storage. We do think that cycling is potentially quite an important clientele of this development. So we want to provide really good cycle storage and maybe charging facilities. A herb garden, so we can do lovely herbal teas and nice herbs in our salads, all connected with a cafe, and a rapid charge, electric car charger. And that will be really useful for the community bus. Also, we hope, you know, for people traveling up and down the A9 and local people as well. So it should be a useful facility. And we will eventually move the sharing shed up to the site to continue its fantastic work of reducing waste and sharing all the resources we have in the village. So then the third building. Our vision for this is very much business use, community services. This building lags behind the others. We've got planning consent for the others, but this one we haven't really got that far. We haven't done all our development work. This building's bigger than the others. It's 100 square meters in total, but still pretty modest. Layout that you can see here isn't layout that we plan at all. This is just to demonstrate what could fit in it. But at the moment, this is laid out as a sort of flexible offices with a meeting room and other bits and pieces. It doesn't need to be like that. The benefits that we're looking for are really you know, local business opportunities, digital connectivity, meetings and training, these sorts of things. So that's the direction we're heading with that. There we are. Health and wellbeing services, we think, could very much be part of that. So we know we won't get a doctor surgery in the village. We've had that conversation lots of times. It's not going to happen. But we do think there's an opportunity for health practitioners to come here and provide some sorts of services, maybe physiotherapy, podiatry, maybe some NHS clinic, this sort of thing. So if there's a suitable space, that could potentially happen here, and it would enable people to access those services more locally than they do at present. Oh, very jittery now. Another way we could go, either or as well as, is individual business units. And some of us went down to Cromarty to visit this little development where they've got 4 little office spaces. It's really fantastic. They're all occupied. In fact, they apparently have a waiting list. In those spaces, there's 2 businesses from Cromarty, one from Dingwall and one from elsewhere on the Black Isle that demonstrates there really is a demand for rural office space. That's something that, you know, we think is worth looking into. And we're working with HIE to help us to develop a bit of a feasibility study and business plan so that we can look at these various options in this third building and come up with a plan that suits. So the money. So to be clear, we already have the capital funding for the whole of the Village Green, which is a great big win, tick, fantastic, it's all done. We don't have all the funding yet for the hub. We have made some really good progress. Main thing is we actually own a serviced site that's zoned for community use. And that's worth a lot. It's had at least £70,000 worth invested in it and just servicing it, the value of the land. That is, you know, a great win for us. In addition to that, as Richard mentioned, we've got the capital receipt from the sale of the land, Cairn, and some additional money. So we've got 120,000 sitting in the bank that we can put towards this project. We're then talking with HIE, Enterprise and Just Enterprise about a funding model for how we pull together the rest of that. That's just starting to kick off now. And one of the things we're discussing is community shares and whether we could go down that route, and would be really interested to hear your thoughts on that. So just see if I meant to say anything else on that. Well, no, I think I'll move on, otherwise I'll lose my track. So just moving on then, that was the buildings and the money, etc. How does that fit in with the rest of the village? I took this drawing from the most recent development plan, draft, the new development plan for Kulboki, and you'll recognise that. That's Kulboki, long, narrow village, dumbbell shape. The green, for those who aren't colourblind, I know Martin won't be able to tell the colours. The green is Cairn, currently under development. It's interesting that the planners have recognised that the village is unsuitable for further housing development. And the reason for that is there's very poor public transport and they don't see a future in car dependency. So the village is saying it's unsustainable, rather harsh language, but basically the other sites, the brown sites that have been zoned for housing, are quite unlikely to be developed now. And so we might get a bit more infill. This is probably the shape of the village for some time to come. And so really we need to make sure that the village is sustainable and resilient for those of us that are here. So, you know, what does that mean? And, you know, we're thinking about how we can make sure that people can travel through the village to access the services they need, also how the village can be really strong and supportive of each other. So it's sort of trying to bring it all together and enable us. It's a term that's been used as a 20-minute neighbourhood. So how can we all be able to access lots of local services within a very short distance of our houses? One of the ways we're trying to address this is through an active travel route through the village, and some of you will already have heard us talk about this. So it's just trying to make it much easier for people to walk and cycle, wheel, so using various mobility aids, etc., through the village without being dependent on a car. And the main elements of this scheme that we're planning is the pavement would be wider, available right there on the village, both sides, so that it's much easier to walk. In addition, 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, slow the traffic, and that would be married up with a bit of more traffic calming so that it makes sure that the traffic is a bit slower. And in addition to that, a little bit of what we call placemaking. So just making it more attractive, more green spaces, a bit more biodiversity, places to sit, maybe places for kids to play. These sort of little things that just make the village a bit more of an attractive place to linger in and walk through. That sort of creates a virtual circle where you get slower cars and more space for people, so people feel happier walking and actually walking through the village. Therefore, they're not in their car, and so there's less traffic. So you get that virtual circle. In addition, I mean, you'll all remember during the first part of COVID, when we were out and about, and you just bumped into people all over the place, and it was just great. And had these little chats with people. And you know, the more people that are out and about, the more you get that bumping into each other sort of culture, which is really great. And also people out walking is healthier, they get more exercise. So it's sort of all adds to a win-win-win-win sort of situation. So these two things together with the hub and the active travel route, it kind of tries to bring it all together. Now this slide, yeah, looks a bit odd actually, but this is to remind me to talk about management. I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, well, how on earth are they going to manage all this? Green spaces, so the green and anything within the village. We have a fantastic volunteer resource, enthusiastic people, and we also see real sort of community development benefits, I guess, in working with volunteers. And you know, there's benefits to the individual people who get involved, especially if there's some training and support and skill sharing and that sort of thing. So we want to examine that route, and we've bought a bit of equipment, some electrical, you know, mowers and strimmers and some hand tools. And we're hoping that we'll get a lot of volunteer support to manage the green. We've also got a backstop, which is that we've costed up how much it would cost if we were to employ contractors to do this, and made sure we put that into our business plan. So we've left ourselves options. And then how do we manage the rest of it, buildings? We're very determined that this whole project has to operate as a business, and it has to generate you know, a small surplus each year in order to keep the whole thing going. There are other communities that have achieved this. Examples up here on the screen. Every community is different opportunities, different constraints. We have to find our own solutions. We're getting loads of help. I mean, we're very encouraged by the support we've been getting from, as I said, Highland Council and other agencies to help us find a way through this. You know, this is where we feel we need to concentrate some effort now. And the final slide, just summary. You know, we've tried really hard. You know, strong heart, healthy community is our slogan. We've tried really hard to generate this heart to the village through the Glascairn project, Beating Heart, something where it's a buzz. You know, there's lots of things going on. It also doesn't cost the earth, and you know, we've tried to take quite an environmental approach to it. And then we've got the active travel route, which connects everything up in a way that, you know, generates a whole range of other benefits for the community. We realise that the world is very much changing. There's lots of new challenges to meet, and we welcome thoughts on how we can build ideas from all of you into our plans, and we'll look forward to hearing those. But that's all I wanted to say, and I think I'd be really interested to hear any discussion points and questions. So, how do I?
Actually, yes, it's reconnected now. Okay, so we'll just open it up now for any questions. And if you've got your Qs, we'll try and provide the As. So, or comments.
I'll just move that so it, can you look at it?
Roger can see our lovely mugs.
I heard a suggestion that the bus stop was past the one that's lying on its side at the moment, that would be a lay-by, bus to pulling off the road. That doesn't seem to be happening.
That was discussed, and strangely, the council see the bus stop there as a traffic calming measure, and it actually slows the traffic, and therefore they actually prefer to have the buses stop as a obstruction on the road. It's been moved, it will be moved further up, but it's not quite so close to the entrance. It was a deliberate decision, and that was just what the roads department required.
Lindsay?
The shed structure with regard to looks amazing. And was needed as a years. If I was to want, when it's up and standing and there was to leave it open, would I have to book that in advance to use it, or is it just going to be open for community use?
Well, that's a good question. I think the only reason to book it would be just to make sure that nobody else was there using it. But, no, I don't think we would want any sort of very formal structures, but it would just be trying to make it available to people, you know, as easily as possible, really. We're not thinking of charging for it for community use.
Absolutely not. It would be open. There's no door and everything. It's an open structure. So yeah, it's turn up. We're not going to have an online booking system.
If we'd have had it during COVID, it would have been so well used, because what we were really desperately short of, we were trying to put gazebos up and they were blowing away in the wind, and have something, a covered space where you know you can do something when the weather's bad, you don't have to cancel it.
Exactly. We had many, because we had like a long time to do these when you were out indoors, and every Tuesday night.
Yep.
Margaret.
Can I ask for a time scale, what we're putting the buildings up from, I know it's an ongoing process and things will continually evolve, but this time next year, what do you hope to achieve in 2 years' time? What,
Yeah.
that's the first question. Second one is to do with funding. How are you seeing funding to keep this going? Yes, you're looking for the area to generate income, so it's sustainable. But alongside that, what about the funding aspect?
Well, first of all, to say the shelter, we envisage that will be up by this summer. We hope July, August, that should be in place and ready for use by mid to late summer this year. Your second question in terms of the other buildings, that is tied up with the other part of your question, Margaret, in terms of funding. Clearly, what we can do, we have planning permission for the site. We're exploring the possibility of applying for a building warrant so that we have a shovel-ready project in terms of any funders. But we have to recognise that the world that we live in has changed in terms of funding and grant opportunities. And one of the challenges we have in Caboki is in terms of where we sit on the Scottish Index of Multiple Deprivation, SIMD. We're not a deprived community, therefore we're not a target for funders and we don't tick their boxes. However, Penny has mentioned community shares. And one of the reasons that we're not, we don't rank on SIMD is we're too wealthy. So maybe there's something we can do in terms of community shares to tap into some folks in the community, or just everybody putting in a small amount. But that's the sort of thing that we want to start a conversation about, how we fund that and how the community can get involved, whether that's community shares, whether there's other, it could be a mix, and we think it'll be a blended funding. So it might be, some grant funding, there might be opportunity for community shares, there might be opportunities for private investment. I mean, we're looking at the office space there. Somebody might be interested in getting involved with that. Do you want to say more on that, Penny, or does that cover most?
Yeah, most of it ended, as you say. Maybe some loans for the Social Investment Scotland we'll be speaking to next week. So we just have to piece it together.
Martin, sorry.
Can I just chip in on the funding side, just to
Yeah, sure. If you want to stick a tenner on the plate, that'll be fine.
just to comment that the actual travel route is all funded.
Yes.
So construction funding is in place for that and the remaining design work. So that is all pretty much in the back, and that's final council make a complete mess, which is always a possibility.
For those of you who are not aware, Martin and others have done a fantastic job in getting the active travel route to the stage it's at. And this project has now actually been taken over effectively by Highland Council, and they will run with it into stage 4 and stage 5. Is that right, Mark?
Stage 4 is the final design stage to take it to going out to tender. Stage 5 is construction.
Yeah.
There are various stages after that, which is basically using it.
Oh, stage 6 means walking along it. Is that
Stage 7.
Yes.
As I said, subject to Highland Council and Sustrans working out that, we will have a role in terms of the design, the final design as well. And there'll be, I'll go through the statutory processes there, but we envisage that that will be in place possibly this year.
And we always thought these things would be really difficult to fund. You know, we weren't at all sure that we would get the funding for the active travel route or the green. We have. So, shovel-ready projects, year-end monies, changing agendas, these things come together. And if you're ready, you know, you sometimes get lucky.
There was one bit of funding, we were in exactly that position, a relatively modest amount of funding, that we were one of the few people that were in a position to say, give us the money and we'll spend it by the end of March this financial year. And if you're in that position and somebody's got money there that they need to spend, then they're delighted to have a shovel-ready project that they can funnel that into. So that's the most we can do in terms of being ready for that. But then it's that bigger conversation and with the community in terms of how do we fund it. This is something that you own. This is something that the community owns. It's a community resource. So how does the community take ownership in terms of funding going forward? It's not just down to the directors to make these decisions. It's down to our members and the wider community as well. Really interesting conversations that we're going to be having. Anyone else? I think we've beaten them into silence. Sure. I think that was really interesting, Penny, and it's been a great little summary and some great photos of what's been going on the green. But and as I said, there are all these other projects that we're doing, whether it's the woods or the history group or lots of other things. A plug for the Kilbokie Community Cycle Club. 40s. There are some of us who go out regularly on trips, just short cycling trips, usually around about, and sometimes involving a cafe, which is always good. So if anyone's interested in getting involved in that, there's a little plug for the community cycling group as well. But I think if there are no further questions, he says looking around the room, I think we'll call it a day there, and just thank you all for coming along this evening and joining us, and thank you, Roger, for joining us online as well.
We forgot to repeat the questions for Roger.
Oh, that was bad.
Sorry, Roger, we forgot to repeat the questions for you.
I'll switch off the recording in a second, then you can always come back to us, Roger.
That's okay. In fact, quite a bit of it was audible, so I was following it. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Roger. I'm just going to stop the recording and just to say thank you all for watching and for participating.